Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, friends. If you could direct your attention up to me, as painful as that might be. I'm Ross Wilburn. I'm the representative, your representative for House District 50 in Ames. The closest that comes up here is 190th up there, but give yourself a round of applause. Thanks for being here on a Sunday. Let's give Laura, where's Laura Teskey? She's right back there. Raise your hand, Laura. Thank you so much for pulling this together. We've got some electeds here. We've got Senator Cornbach. He's there with his Kamala hat on. I love it. I saw former elected Ralph had left. We got our, county, we got Lucy, I'm sorry. We got our county auditor, Lucy Martin. Give her a round of applause. If I missed anybody, just shout it out now, but otherwise...
Candidate Mike Wolfe.
Well, I'm going to get to Mike. Yeah, he's coming, but I appreciate that. You know, that short-term memory is kicking in. So you have to excuse the... I've got the pants on because I've got cycling shorts. I was doing a fundraising charity ride that I do every year in Iowa City this morning, but, first of all, there's been a real change in energy this year in terms of national politics and the national campaign. Yeah, I want to start by thanking President Biden for his years of work, his dedication, and his family. I remember, I used to have some good interactions with his son, Bo, during some of the campaigns here in Iowa, and just history will definitely go down that President Biden made a huge impact for all of us and Americans. And I hadn't seen the Des Moines Register, and so I hadn't seen the polls, but we all know that great news, and how about that debate last week? Yeah? But there's plenty of work to do, and that energy is certainly filtering down to the doors and all of our candidates. Vice President Kamala Harris, she's doing a phenomenal job, and Governor Walz, he's been doing a great job. We just have to keep that energy going. I was at the Deltas, a black sorority. They had me speak at their event last night. They had the League of Women Voters there supporting a black business in North Liberty, Iowa, and while I was speaking, the league had at least signed about 4 or 5 people up to register to vote at that. So it's those little things that we have to keep doing to chip away to make this happen. We all know the only poll that matters, because a lot of stuff is going to happen between now and November 5th. The only poll that matters is November 5th. We've got to get young people out. Awesome to get the Swifties on board. We know that's a group that doesn't respond to polls. And we just had a conversation, Laura, Mike, and Sue, who's going to become that later, about young people and what they're concerned. We got to talk to them about issues. Forget about party when you talk. Find out what they are concerned about. Look for that teachable moment, and that's where you want to talk to them about this is what we can do, and the people of our politics agenda that we're putting forward. And we've been trying to work, and we can make the argument that Senator Cornbach and Beth Wessel-Christian, we've all been trying to put people over politics in general. But we can get this done, but only with all of your help, and we will keep things moving forward. So speaking of keeping things moving forward, I do want to call up to the mic Mike Wolfe. He's a great candidate running for the Senate. We can make some noise in the Senate. I don't want to steal his thunder, but I heard Senator Cornbach remind us that just getting one additional senator can make a difference in who gets nominated as the head of education, as opposed to a Betsy DeVos protege. But otherwise, I'm going to turn the mic over to Mike, and you take it away, my friend.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I really appreciate that. Don't forget your phone. Oh, okay, that's fine. I appreciate you all coming out today to help Sue and everyone else try and get our state back to some semblance of sanity. It's well past time for us to get back to sanity, to putting the politics of out-of-state voices aside and going back to listen to what regular Iowans want. As I was really getting into running for this race, I was talking to a lot of people who were, currently serving in office as a Democrat. And I heard time and time again about all of the feedback from their constituents about, we want the AEA to stay as it is. We want the private voucher system to go away. And regardless of all of that feedback, all I heard from our Republican administration and the Republican majority was, well, this is what we're gonna do. Absolutely nothing about the voices of the people that put them in office. And that can't be more wrong. And I really do encourage all of us to just reach out to your friends and your neighbors, for the people who are like, they got a Trump sign in their yard and we don't talk politics anymore. Because right now, the energy has changed so much here in Iowa. The tide is shifting, and we have an opportunity to just turn that tide into a tidal wave. Because I got a picture from my friend Ryan Milton, who's running for Iowa 4 in what is possibly one of the reddest districts in Congress in the nation. And his message, his picture was, it was a sign made up of like 5 sheets of plywood on some fella's fence line, hand painted. And it said, "This is my dirt, no deadly pipeline." This is an issue that has Republicans absolutely up in arms against the people who will not listen to Republican voters. And they are absolutely ready to make a change. Maybe not at the top of the ticket, we'll work on that later. But at least in the policies that matter to them in their homes, in their lives, and at their schools. We couldn't have a better opportunity than we do right now to just talk to people about the issues, not about party, but about the issues, and say, hey, what do you think about that eminent domain abuse? Do you really think the Republicans are going to change their mind? Of course they won't. What do you think about that private school voucher where, we're siphoning money out of rural schools and injecting it into wealthy suburbs private schools by giving it to people who, are 4 times the poverty level, which is $130,000 a year for a family of 4? Do they really need a state subsidy? I would say no. But if we really get at those issues about how are we changing people's lives, the Republicans are wrong on just about everything. And people are ready to hear it. As long as you're broaching it on policies and change and putting people first, it is absolutely the moment to talk to people about how can we make Iowa better? How can we go back to how it was when people cared about their neighbors? And I don't want to tell you what to do is how advice started. That's how we need to go back to. So there can't be a better time than now. Let's go talk to people. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, my friend. I mentioned I was in Iowa City for this charity bike ride, and then the Delta event that I did last night. But I bumped into a handful of folks, and one of them said, "Hey, Ross, you used to be mayor here, right?" "Yeah, that was back in 2006. I'm in Ames now, and been in Ames for 10 years. I'm running for my 4th term unopposed, so thank all you for that work and energy." And she said, "You won't remember this or me, but when you were running for office for city council at that time, you knocked on my door. And you were the only person who knocked on the door. Life was pretty busy. I didn't really know what the issues were. But when election day came, you were the only one who knocked on my door. And I remember that I voted for you." And so it's those one-to-one connections, talking about issues. We don't have to worry about throwing about the party out there, but find out what they care about and grab a hold of that, because there are people of all, Republican, Libertarian, no party. And if you can make that connection, even young people, and we have to come back over and over and over again. Find 5 people that you know that sometimes vote, because sometimes people vote because they think one vote make a difference. Sometimes they don't vote because life gets busy and then election day passed and they forgot. And by finding those 5 folks, and we know who they are, one time a week between now and November 5th, call them, find out, try and get them to register. Once they register, try and get them, call them up a couple days before election day, say, hey, I'm going to go grab, in fact, I'm going to put this out there for the first, I think it's the first Saturday at the public library. I'm going to tell folks, I'm going to go grab an early lunch, but come with me down to the library and vote. It's those types of connections we can make. And one person who's been really putting people over politics and reaching out across the aisle, whoever will listen to him, is Ryan Condon, who's running for House District 51, and that's the seat that Dave Dio has held. So there's a challenge he's running against. I'm not going to steal his thunder, but he's running against the current mayor of Nevada, I believe. And so there's been some interesting to-doings there, and I will let Ryan do that. And let's put our hands together for Ryan.
Hey everybody, sorry I was late. I was putting in the work actually. So I was actually at a Trump farmer's house when Mike texted me. And I saw the text and I said, oh, I'm late. And that guy said, oh, do you need to go? And I was like, yeah, I gotta go to a brewery. I gotta go drink like right now. Guy laughed and he was like, well, meet me next week. We'll put up one of your big signs. So got another one. I was having a conversation with my brother. I don't have a prepared speech today. I was having a conversation with my brother, loves Trump and just thinks he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I love talking to him because he is how I get my insight on how to speak to these guys. And one of the things that has happened in my race, I think Brett Barker, who I'm running against, is intentionally trying to get me into office. I don't think he really wants to do it. Because he took money from an out-of-state billionaire from South Dakota. And if there is one thing Trump people across the board, everyone I've spoken to, they hate the money in politics situation. They can't stand it. Now that's true across the board for Democrats too, but we have common sense, so it's not really an issue. So as I'm talking to him, I'm explaining, yeah, he's taking the maximum allowed by federal law, federal and state law, and then the same day he got a bunch of money from Chevron Corporation. It's like, we're not Texas. Chevron has no business here in central Iowa. He agreed, and he was like, well, what can I do to help? And I was like, he's like, I don't know if I can donate to a Dem. I'm just gonna be honest. And I was like, I'm not asking for your money. I'm asking for your support. And he said that was a refreshing change, that I'm not coming and asking for money, I'm just asking for his help. And so he offered to put the big sign up. So that's pretty much the approach I'm taking. I'm sure you guys all saw the news today on the Register, the 47-43 for Harris. That is amazing. And it really puts the wind at our back. If Trump only has a 4-point lead, that's going to help a lot of us. That means there's real discontent out there, and it matches with everything that I've seen. The Republicans on the other side, there's a real split there. They cannot forgive the people that backed Haley and DeSantis and so forth. They are loyal to only Trump. And so I think we're starting to see, I think we might take Iowa. I think we're going to do a lot better than people think. So, again, I am sorry I was late. I won't make it long. After I'm done here, I'm back out. So, thank you guys so much. We can't do it without you. Donate, volunteer, support, put out signs. This is the last thing I'll say before I go. We Dems have a courage problem. I will tell you that. I was in Gilbert and I was in Huxley. I went to known Dem voters. That's who I was knocking today. I did not get a single Dem to want to put a sign up, not one. because they're afraid. Now, I can get a Trump guy, but I cannot get Dems because they don't want to be singled out. We need to be courageous. We have to be bold. It's the only way. Counting on silent support is not going to do it. Everyone that we know, tell them, put a sign up. You know, yeah, you might get some flack from your neighbors, you might not. I wouldn't have expected the support I've gotten from the right at all. But me and Mike, we've had the courage to knock those doors, so we need to have the courage at the very least to support our candidates. So thank you guys for your time.
Technical difficulties. All right. So thanks, Ryan. And again, like I said, he's been putting in the work, door to door, person to person, relationship to relationship, and that's what's going to take. And especially with some of the young people, you hear them. If you hear I mean, they know what they care about. They know the issues. But if you hear the concern about their vote, my one vote won't make a difference. When I was a mayor, there was a nearby town, Hills, Iowa, and this is 2006, 2007, and their mayoral race was a tie. They had no provision in their town charter to break a tie, and so they drew the name of the mayor, next mayor, out of a coffee can. So I asked folks, what do you care, what are you passionate about, what makes it different for you in your life? Do you want it to come down to a name be drawn out of a coffee can? Because several of these House races that we lost, and you can touch base with Herman about the Senate, I'm not familiar with their figures, but came down to 1,200 votes or less. We had a handful that were less than 20 votes. So one vote, one interaction, one relationship, and going after those folks can make a difference, but we have to be courageous, as Ryan was saying, and bring that forth. And speaking of courageous, it has been a pleasure to serve with Sue Cahill from Marshalltown in the Iowa House of Representatives. And the leadership that she has shown, she puts in the time reaching across the aisle to build relationships. And she's on the education committee. She is an educator. And one of the stories, I'm going to not take your thunder here, but I remember Sue telling me after one of the education meetings, and Republican that Sue had been working on and building that relationship. As I recall the story, I'm not going to name the name because I'm just not going to name the name, but Sue had said, I know that you know and believe that the school vouchers are a bad idea. Why won't you vote no? And the response, as I recall, was, they won't let us. Now, first of all, I can't imagine in a Democratic meeting, they won't let us. That not turning into a 5-hour conversation where we send the staff out and go at each other. But, if the worst thing that happens in my life, and I'm sure my colleagues share the same thing, if the worst thing that happens in my life is that because of a vote I took or one I fought against, based on my personal values and beliefs, and based on the constituents that I represent, if the worst thing that happens to me is I get primaried by my party or a governor, my life is pretty good. Or I lose an election because of that. My life is pretty good. And so I promise you that Sue Cahill is someone who believes that. She builds those relationships. She challenges folks by their friendly smile, but getting in their face and reminding them what the issues are. It's something that she will do. So I will stop there. I'm going to bring Sue up and let her take it over from there. Sue.
Thank you very much, Ross. It is a joy serving with Ross and with Beth. because they are so knowledgeable about what's going on. And I just appreciate how I'm only completing my second term. So having those folks who have been involved in the House and in the legislature for a longer period of time is so helpful. I've served with Ross and on several committees, and I really appreciate it. So thank you very much. I have to come and say that you guys might not remember, but I have deep ties with Story County Democrats. In the year 2000, my husband, John, ran for state senate against Larry McKibben. It's basically the same territory that you have, and I remember knocking on doors in Gilbert and in Huxley and in the rural Ames and these northern Ames areas at that time. Now, he came in second in the race. Pretty good, right? No. He did not win. He did not win, but it was such an experience to learn how to run, how to conduct yourself in these types of things, how to convey your feelings to people and your values. And so even from that point, I got some good lessons with that. I have to admit, I am a 65-year-old lady. I'm a career teacher. I had been a child care provider as well prior to that. I've worked for some not-for-profit organizations prior to that. We moved to Marshalltown in 1996. I gotta think which kid. Oh, I take that back, it was 1990, because I had a 6-month-old at that time. And I have 6 boys, and they are lovely adults now. And so I have to admit, part of the late 80s, 90s are just kind of a blur. I admit it. You know, I knocked on a door yesterday of a gentleman who had 5 children. And I said, well, you know, we had one thing that kept us sane, one activity per child per season. You can't do more than one. You pick what you want because we just can't handle it. But we moved here, and I did kind of the mothering routine. When I first moved here, I'd worked outside of the house prior to that point. And when I got here, the mere thought of finding a job was overwhelming. But number 2, finding childcare for 4 children under the age of 5. That was pretty daunting to me. So I decided to become an in-home childcare provider, and I actually worked with the Extension Center here out of Ames, providing training for other providers. It gave me a really good piece of understanding on what families go through when they're trying to find quality childcare, and I try and bring that with me to the legislature because that's a big issue. How do we treat our children from the time they are born? How do we support their parents who are the first teachers of those children? How do we help prepare them to become active in the educational system? So I did childcare for about 10 years. My kids got older and they said, Mom, are we gonna have these kids around here all the time? And I decided I went back to the Buena Vista, which had a center in Marshalltown, and took on my teaching degree and started teaching at the age of 40. So I was a little late bloomer on the teaching side of it, but I taught in Marshalltown for 23 years. I was a kindergarten teacher, and I taught in a bilingual school, and I am not completely fluent in Spanish, but I can hold my own pretty well, and I could teach numbers and colors and you know, those things, so that was pretty good. I also was a teacher librarian. You know, these issues that we're having in the legislature are so near my heart. How we treat our first kids, whether it's child care, whether it is preschool, when they come to kindergarten, what books they can check out in the library, and how they are treated when they are in our schools. I remember in kindergarten, one of our first units was family. You know, okay, draw me a picture of your family. With the law as it states now, that would be a very difficult thing to have your children do, to have them get up and say, well, here's Mommy Rose, and here's Mommy Linda, and these are my brothers and all. Because how can I, as a teacher, not comment and say, I bet you have a lot of love in your family, or read a book that carries out that message. But teachers and the educational system, we are really being hand-tied of what we can do to meet the needs of the children in our care and the children that we serve. That has been one of the biggest issues for me as an educator, and to try and have other people understand where educators are coming from, where librarians are coming from, because in a push-poll, the poll where, they're really promoting one candidate, and the call would say, well, how would you think if I said that Sue Cahill wants pornography and voted for pornography in all of our elementary schools? Well, that's not exactly what I voted for. I voted to let parents choose what their children read, to have open-minded discussions, and to let children learn from the literature that is out there to be better people. If we only teach them one way, and that there's only one right way, we're never opening up the world to them, and they will not be able to expand their ideas, their minds. They just won't be able to understand other people. And so that is critical to me in our educational system as well. I continued and worked in the district as a teacher leader at the 30,000 foot view to see the whole district. I worked with all the new teachers. And finally I came back in my last 2 years when I decided to run to be a Title I teacher, which is small group reading. So going from the big picture of the whole district to pinpointing what individual students or small groups of students need to succeed. And I am a strong believer that is where our public funding and our public taxes need to go to provide every student the opportunity to meet their full potential at their local public school. I told this to a gentleman yesterday, and I hope you don't throw rocks at me, okay? I believe we have a lot of choices in our schools. We have homeschooling, we have charter schooling, we have open enrolling to other schools in our areas. We have private schools, of which in Marshalltown there are 2, and actually I sent my children to the Catholic school, which went to 6th grade. But I was on their board, and as president of their board, we started a scholarship fund for families who could not afford the fees. We gathered the other parishioners who had sent their children and said, can you help someone who wants their child to have that type of instruction, which is pretty specialized, and can you help pay for it? There's really a lot of choices. There are some students, when the vouchers came through, my biggest concern was, again, we are not meeting the needs of the students who maybe need this the most. And this is an admission, and I almost could have supported a voucher program or a scholarship program if it was meant for the lowest economic, the folks who needed that help and needed a different type of education at that level of no more than 200% of poverty. Those students may not get that opportunity. They don't have the same opportunities as families with money. So maybe I could have supported that, but no one was ever willing to talk about it, to compromise about it, to say, what's good for Iowa? Do we need to be letting all the kids in that go to Dowling, whose parents have already paid for 3 years of Dowling and who make far more than many of us put together, do we need to be giving them the money for private schools? And I don't think we do. I think private schools are a choice, and I think if we want to make education better for all children, we've got to make it better for my child, but then we've got to make it better for every child. We can't be selective. And giving our dollars away. And as we've seen, the voucher program has doubled in its administration fees that have been through it. So many more students have applied for it that the funds, which have no top limit, they have skyrocketed. And I am not exactly sure where all this money's coming from, except to know that most likely it's probably coming out of our public school funds, because they say, oh, we've already donated this, or we've already allotted this much money to education. We've given a lot to education. We're not going to give it any more. And we fund education all the time. We hear that regularly. I believe that our public funds do need to stay at our public schools and make education better for every child. Now, another area that education, big passion, and it goes on to the regent level, the community college, and the regents level. And I'm sorry, Iowa State people, I don't know what you guys did to make the legislators angry with the regents universities, because they are not very kind in what they speak about our regents universities, as far as how we're indoctrinating students with our diversity, inclusion, and equity, and we have to do away with all that because we're only allowing for little bits for people. I thought one of my favorite lines was from President Weinstein from Iowa State, when she said at the Regents meeting that was probably earlier in the summer, and she said, yes, we're working to make it so that any rural white male will feel comfortable at Iowa State. I'm like, she gets it, she gets it. And if a rural white male doesn't feel comfortable here already, she was recognizing that, yes, we're taking what you've asked us to do and make sure all students feel comfortable, especially those rural white males. But kudos to her for standing up in that way. But I do think our regents are not only, and our community colleges, not only educational institutions, they are economic drivers. They are driving our workforce. The community college, I visited with them this week. They were having students going through the lineman program and getting jobs just directly with Alliant and Consumer Energy, and able to take on those skills because they've earned a 2-year certification at the community college. Our Regents universities, again, the amount, I am on an allocation of infrastructure committee, and we have toured the veterinarian diagnostic clinics several times and provided money and allotted money for that expansion. The economic drivers that are part of that and the research drivers are incredible. We need to celebrate our regents. We need to celebrate the people who work at them, the students who attend them, and make them available for more in our state, and not think of them as a place that is only providing liberal thoughts to our children. We encourage our children to learn how to think. That's what our Regents universities do. Finally, I work on another committee that I'm passionate about, and it's the Veterans Affairs Committee. In Marshalltown, we have the Iowa Veterans Home, and it is an area that all of the residents of the Veterans Home are my constituents. I love going there. I think I'm actually going there tomorrow for just a talking, a listening post, and I do that regularly just to visit with them and see what's going on. And I did recently call for our auditor, Rob Sand, to do some investigation into the Veterans Home, just because there have been some changes made that cut down the number of jobs that maybe work directly with the veterans. And initially we were told it was due to budgets that they had to do this, even though we gave them an additional $1 million this year through the legislature. But later it came that maybe it wasn't so much budget. There were just some things that didn't come across as answering the questions of why are we making these changes. And so I'm hoping that they find nothing in any issues. I hope that we can put this issue to rest and provide the best care for our veterans at the Veterans Home, as well as veterans across the state of Iowa. It's important that they have served us, and we need to make sure that we are serving them as well. My 6 boys, I have to say my husband died in 2006 of cancer, and so my youngest was 10 at the time and my oldest was 22. And I'm just a real proud mom that feels like, oh, all of my kids have insurance now. I feel like I mean, the bar has been raised, that they are doing well, and I appreciate their support. 3 of them here, still live in Iowa, and 3 of them are out of state. But it is an opportunity for me to share some of that, I don't want to say mothering, but that common sense work that even as parents, you have some common sense of how you treat your kids and how you teach them and how you spread your morals onto them and your values. And that's what I want to do in the legislature, again, in the House. I've been able to work for the 2 terms. It has not been easy. I've been part of the minority with Ross and Beth for that time, and Herman. But we've got to come back and find some common sense. I don't want to call it the common sense parenting, but some common sense. Let's come together, guys, and figure out what's going to work for the most people, for everyone, and not just for specific groups. So that's kind of my motto as I move ahead, listening to people, standing up for my values and what I believe, and being able to converse with other people and try and share why we need changes, or why can't we compromise? Let's look at this and change a little here and there to make it better for all. I do appreciate you all coming today, and I just appreciate Beth and Ross giving, they're in that good spot of being uncontested, and I was 2 years ago, but I do have a contestant, or an opponent this year, and I do find it makes me a better candidate, though. I'm out knocking doors, talking to people, visiting with you guys, and hoping you will spread our word to people that are around here that maybe don't live in Ames proper, but I live in a little blue oasis over there on Highway 30, and I really need some friends around me. And yeah, we definitely need Ryan and Mike to help share that, because I'm kind of just a little spot there, but would love to do it. Again, love talking with you today. If you have any questions, are we good on that? If you have a question or so, or and I'm happy to answer. Okay.
So Sue's going to be here for a little bit, so feel free to approach her. Sue had an opponent jump in
End of June.
end of June, so that's one of the reasons we're trying to help Sue out here. And actually, Beth has a Libertarian opponent who came in at the very end here, so that's part of what we're working against. So there is a lot of energy. Just as another example of what's been going on out there, our House Leader, Jennifer Converse, she had mentioned, one time before down in Burlington, she had been down there to help out with some door-to-door, a couple of years ago, and we had 10 Democrats show up. Well, she just recently went down there. There were 80 Democrats down in Burlington. We had Dennis Cahoon, longtime member in the House, just one of our champions, had lost the election last time, and it was because of turnout. Again, people get busy, life gets busy, or they think my vote won't matter. And we certainly could have used Dennis to help with the vote against the school vouchers and the attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are at 37 and 36 in the House. And we were in the 40s when and these bills were coming up back then, even since I've been in the House. But we were able to stop them back then. And so our push and our goal with this energy is to get back in the 40s and put ourselves in a position to get a majority back in the House. We've got great energy. We want Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to win and give money to them, and they can do great stuff. And we want Ryan Melton and Christina Bohannon and Lenan Bakan and Ms. Corcoran in Congress for us to represent and to help our new president get things done. But there's some tough stuff happening right here, right now. We just been through it. One vote will make a difference. You can make a difference reaching out, helping other parts of the state, other districts outside of Story County, because vouchers and the battle against working people and the 40 anti-LGBTQ bills that came through, and even the death penalty. I was at a meeting about anti-human trafficking. I wasn't even supposed to be on this committee outside of session, and Senator Dawson at the end sort of wink wink jokingly said, well, we just need to, for these folks that are doing the human trafficking, we just need to bring back the death penalty. There was some nervous laughter in the room, but he's serious about that. And so if you think, well, what more can they do? There's a lot more that can be done. And our battle starts now, and when you hear somebody say Kim Reynolds needs to go, yes, she does, but the battle starts in 51 days. Keep working hard. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable for the next 51 days, and let's get this done. Thank you, everybody.